This time of year, I bury a seed in the ground and expect to see something rising from it a day, 2 days, 6 days, 2 weeks later. Welcome to Calm in the Chaos Interfaith Center, where we know the word resurrection sparks heated discussions among people in religious circles. You see, today is the celebration, the Christian holy day of Easter. The actual date is calculated by watching the moon. Yes, the moon. The date has nothing to do with Jesus or church. It's all about the moon. To find the date, we look at the vernal equinox, which is the spring equinox. It's usually around March 20th or 21st. Then we look at a chart of the phases of the moon and note the date of the first full moon after the vernal equinox. Move ahead to the nearest Sunday following that full moon, and it's Easter. This year, in 2023, the vernal equinox is right on March 20th. The next full moon was Thursday, April 6th, and the following Sunday is today, Easter, the day that Christians celebrate the resurrection of Jesus from the grave, the day that follows the final meal shared with his disciples. We call it the Last Supper. On Friday, called Good Friday, which is somewhat ironic since it is the day Christians commemorate the gruesome death of the man they know as their leader. Hardly a good feeling, but his body is laid in a borrowed grave with a large stone rolled in front of the opening, and on Sunday, several women visit the cave grave and find the stone has been removed and Jesus' body is gone. The resurrection. Traditionalists believe that Jesus is coming again. They expect to see a human being, perhaps in the form of a man in his 30s, to actually come to the planet again. Now hold on to your hats, because I believe that the second coming is all about Christ, not about Jesus. I enjoy the twists that modern media has put on this idea, because if you've read the book called The Shack or seen the movie of the same name, you may imagine the second coming of Christ to be in the form of a middle-aged black woman, one who looks a lot like Olivia Spencer. If you watch films about the apocalyptic ending of the world, you can get very frightened and want to believe more in the coming of Jesus to save us yet again. When Jesus came the first time, he was called the light of the world. Yet he was not the light. He was the compass that pointed us to the light, to God. So in some ways, maybe he was the light, like a flashlight can guide us to looking at a certain thing. Jesus never asked us to worship him and sing praise songs in his name. He instructed us to love one another and to love God, period. I'm taking a quick turn here, so buckle your seatbelt. In the past week, I have seen numerous friends and people I don't know post a list on Facebook. It's an exhaustive list of the mass shootings that have occurred in our country. Exhaustive. And yet we're not moved enough to disarm the offenders. I was also made aware of a pastor whose message last week was so powerful, the congregation gave him a standing ovation in a church about gun control. The message was about gun control. I didn't watch the message yet because I had already begun this God talk and I didn't want to plagiarize any of his message by accident. We live in a culture of fear. And fear rises from anger, ignorance, and pain. Living in fear is fostered, actually, by people in power telling us that we should be afraid. It assures that we will remain under their control then. If it's a person in a pulpit or an uneducated talk show host distorting the meaning of the Second Amendment, we believe that that can be true, and we join their club. We get on that bandwagon and we belong. We've a tribe now. We've a chosen family that believes what we believe, and it makes us feel stronger. Just watch the footage from the January 6th massacre at our nation's Capitol building, when young, impressionable children, children and teens, hear their families talk. The torch of hatred and violence is passed on. Now, I grew up with guns in my home. Excuse me, I never saw them. They were kept in a place to which we children had no access. The ammunition was kept in an old upright freezer whose freon had long ago disappeared and was being used as a locked storage cabinet. Now, eventually, I was taught gun safety by my father, and I learned to shoot by sighting in the .22 and the shotgun and the archery equipment every fall in preparation for hunting season. That's it. I never went hunting for animals or humans. And even though I grew up watching Bonanza, The Rifleman, and Gunsmoke, I knew they were fiction. It never once occurred to me that real people in this world would use a gun on another human being, except in times of war, where military people were trained differently from what my father and I were used to. Should we blame video games for this mess? Young people playing shoot 'em up day after day with their brains not developed fully, not developed enough to keep the fiction and reality straightened out. It's a question. But there are thousands of young people playing those games who do not ever pick up a gun and drive to a school to open fire. It's easy to blame adults who purchase the guns made to kill many people in a short amount of time. Why did they purchase those? So they could protect their families? From what? The impending apocalypse that is being preached by conservative CINOs, which are Christians in name only? Yes, I'm entering a judgment zone here. People who are hiding behind the name Christian but acting on their own, not with the guidance of Jesus. People who are so filled with fear, although probably not admitting it, that they need an arsenal to protect themselves. An arsenal. A 2018 Small Arms Survey revealed that the United States is the only country in the world with more civilian-owned guns than people. There are 120 firearms per 100 residents. If you own 1 or 2 guns for hunting, then that means your neighbor owns the other 118 that could be counted as yours. The survey also gives us hope, however, and I quote, "States with the most restrictions on gun users also have the lowest rates of gun-related deaths, while states with fewer regulations have a higher death rate from guns." There's hope if we can get the regulations in place. If you identify as any of the world's major religions, if you are a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew, a Sikh, or you follow a Buddhist path, you have been taught to support a peaceful way of being in this world. A peaceful way. Can you imagine what that would look like? Now, most religions have their zealots, people who've lost their way, and Christianity is not exempt. There's no possible way, though, a person can tell me that they're a Christian and support allowing non-military citizens to own weaponry that can kill masses of people in a matter of seconds. No way. You will never convince me that you understand the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth if you feel the need to amass weapons designed to kill humans. Love your neighbor is incompatible with arming yourself against them. If your spiritual life is intact and growing in a healthy manner, You do not need to build your own personal army. The title of this God Talk is Something Must Die, because of the resurrection story in Christianity. Something has to die in order to have a resurrection, a renewal, new life. Jesus was tortured and killed in a very painful way, and his body was laid in a borrowed cave covered with cloths, a small one on his head. While Mary Magdalene, Salome, and the mother of James visited the tomb and they saw Jesus' body was gone, they were shocked. He had risen beyond the mortal form into the realm of the holy divine, and that's called the resurrection. And then new life began. New life for his disciples, new life for his mother, now in the home of John, new life for Christians who believe his death allows their sins to be forgiven so they can enter the kingdom of heaven. Something must die for new life to begin, but not our children. There's no new life after this. After the massacres in schools and temples. Not our neighbors who worship on Saturday or Sunday, not our friends. These are not the deaths we're looking at. We can't have this to have a resurrection. Not our friends who are just shopping in a store. Not our teachers. Not people out for a good night in a bar. Not our children. That which must die is our silence. Our inability to pick up the phone and call every single congressperson and senator. Figure out your elevator speech on gun control. Figure out your own. Here's mine. I want to be able to own a firearm, but I don't want any civilian to be able to own an automatic weapon that fires 800 rounds per minute. 800. That which must die is our blind eye. We watch the news and we talk about how awful it is, and we scroll right by the pleas for donations from the Sandy Hook Elementary School Parents Organization. We have gotten so this is our daily fare, our weekly fare. It's almost normal. I recently had to be fingerprinted and I underwent a criminal background search to help with an after-school program. Hardly an area where my presence was going to be a deadly threat to the students, and yet the National Rifle Association, the NRA, does not support universal criminal background checks yet for the sale of a gun. We can continue wringing our hands and keeping our children home from school, staying clear of gay bars, temples, churches, stores, dance halls, parades, and regular life outside our homes. But what else can we do? If praying is what you are capable of, then pray fervently. If you can do more, if you can pick up the phone and text or email people with the power to make change, then do that. If you can organize or attend meetings and rallies, do that. It's important to keep our eyes and our ears open during what is called liminal time, the time between our old comfort zone and knowing what to do next. And that's where we are. We are in liminal time. Stay awake. And when the Spirit moves you, make a commitment to actually do something. While we are looking at the complexities of how we raise our children, which is the root cause of the gun violence, we're raising people to think that's an okay solution. While we're doing that, we can take action in our legislative branch of our government. Our actions can change things, but we must rally and we must make noise. Our silence must die. Why don't we see ads for cigarettes on TV anymore? Laws were passed to eliminate them despite the power of the tobacco industry. Laws that weren't necessary in 1910 have since been passed to punish drunk drivers when it became a societal problem. We must make new laws, and we must enforce them. Sometimes my soul is called to action, to act on behalf of the spiritual guides that I've studied and loved. While some of my friends are waiting for Jesus to come from the clouds in a flurry of a white billowy robe, I believe that Jesus returns daily in the stirrings of our souls. I believe Jesus has returned and continues to return every time one of us extends a Christ-like kindness or creates an idea to better the conditions of living on this planet. I believe that Jesus returns through us. In 1867, John Stuart Mill delivered a speech at the University of St. Andrews, a speech that included these words: "Let not anyone pacify his conscience by the delusion that he can do no harm if he takes no part and forms no opinion. Bad men need nothing more to compass their ends than that good men should look on and do nothing. He's not a good man who, without a protest, allows wrong to be committed in his name and with the means which he helps to supply, because he will not trouble himself to use his mind on the subject." On this Easter day, let's commit to knowing that we are the hands, the heart, and the voice of Jesus on this earth. I'm not waiting for him to return in a cloud of angels. Let's commit to a rising, a personal rising up. Let our fury over our murdered sisters and brothers fuel our own resurrection. Amen and amen. Our meditation is from John Seuss. We return to the original sentence of this God talk where I said, "I bury a seed in the ground and expect to see something rising above the surface." Give yourself some time to reflect on your own seed planting and the resurrection of the life that is underground in you right now. Here are John's words. "To be of the earth is to know the restlessness of being a seed, the darkness of being planted, the struggle toward the light, the pain of growth into the light, the joy of bursting and bearing fruit, the love of being food for someone, the scattering of your seeds, the decay of the seasons, the mystery of death, and the miracle of birth." Remember that Passover and Easter often overlap on our calendar, and that's very true this year. Our music recommendation is background for someone preparing a Passover meal. The photographs are just beautiful. Enjoy.